What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men, but now we're going to jump over to Excalibur. Now, when it comes to Excalibur, we're going to cover a book called Excalibur Weird War 3. Now, Weird War 3, for me personally, is very weird. And you see what I mean as we go through today's video. Now, this book alone is really more of a callback to the early days of Excalibur. Let me explain. So, as we all know, our heroes had traveled across the multiverse in a story arc called Cross-Time Caper, where they were able to see different kinds of realities across Marvel's multiverse. But before they did that, they were actually confronted by some characters from a different reality, better known as Earth 597. Now, in that reality, in that universe, when it came to World War II, you had the Nazis being able to win the war. And so, of course, they took over the entire world. Now, we were only told that by some of the characters who came into the main Marvel universe, and that was it. We had no ability to actually explore that reality until this book right here, where you do have our heroes being able to actually explore what that reality was actually like. Now, as we dive into the opening pages of today's video, we actually pick up in Earth 597. Now, I want to say real quickly that the opening pages of this book is pretty rough. And you see what I mean here in a moment, because as we jump over to Earth 597, we actually pick up with a line of people who are being escorted into this camp. Now, the people who are coming in, they have no idea what exactly happens in this camp. And really, the way they are dressed, you can tell they're more like the high-end class people. But again, they have no idea what exactly happens in this camp. But while they're coming in, there is another line of people being escorted out, and they know what happens now at the end of their tenure at this camp. They get killed off. And so we see every single person in that line walk into this one chamber where they are burned alive until they are turned to ashes. But the book tells us after they had died, their psychic essence was actually absorbed by an unknown being for an unknown reason. So now we know in this reality that some camps in this reality is killing off people to absorb their psychic essence. But the question is right now, why? But now we have to jump over to Rachel Summers back in the main Marvel universe. Now, when it comes to Rachel Summers, around this time in Marvel Comics, she was the Phoenix. Now, when we do pick up with Rachel, we actually see her screaming out in pain. And the reason why, because she felt the pain of all those people who had died in that chamber back on Earth 597. Now, you can say at first that should not be possible at all. For her to be able to feel the pain of those people who had died back on that Earth over there. But apparently she can. Now, with her screaming, she does wake up the rest of Excalibur, and they do run into her room to see if she is okay. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she freaks out even more when she looks at Kitty Pryde. And here is the reason why. Because like I said earlier, when it came to Excalibur, they were confronted by some characters from that reality. So for example, they have met that reality version of Excalibur, better known as the Lighting Team. Now, on that team right there, they also met the counterpart of Kitty Pryde from that reality, except that Kitty Pryde unfortunately was a slave. And so they realized that she had a horrible backstory. And so for Rachel Summers, when she looked at Kitty Pryde, she didn't see her Kitty Pryde, she saw that reality Kitty Pryde, and kind of wondering what in the world is truly going on here. Now, before our heroes are able to learn more about what's exactly going down with Rachel, they are then confronted by Alistair Stewart. Now, Alistair Stewart is a character we talked about before. He appeared in the early days of Excalibur comics. You see, he works for an organization known as WHO, and WHO stands for Weird Happening Organization, where they go around the world to investigate weird things happening across the world. Now, when it comes to Alistair, This is not the main Marvel universe, Alistair. This is actually an alternate reality, Alistair. Earth 597 to be more exact. Now, the reason why it's here right now is to tell our heroes that the leader of the world has now demanded that all mutants across the board have to register, and that includes Excalibur as well. Now, for our heroes, they are very confused because this man just said the leader of the world, but then before he leaves, he says, "Hell Hitler," and he walks out. And so for our heroes, they're kind of wondering, have they once again been teleported into an alternate reality? And now their goal is to figure out what exactly is going on here. But now we have to jump over to this reality's version of Charles Xavier. Now, we do learn very quickly that this Charles does work underneath Hitler. Matter of fact, when it came to Hitler, he has been training Charles to be the next world leader. But here's the catch though. Charles wants that role right now, but Hitler is still around. And so for Charles, he's trying his best to get rid of Hitler so that he can finally have that role. Now, we also do learn that Charles is working on a special kind of project where he's trying to push men into the next step of evolution, into creating the perfect mutant, better known as the X-Men. And so earlier, when we saw all those people die in that chamber, it was because of Charles Xavier. Because again, he is trying to push men into the next step of evolution to hopefully find the perfect mutant. And so he tells his troops, go ahead, continue on with the project. Go ahead and kill off more people until we are able to create the perfect X-Men. But right after his troops leave the room, that is when he is attacked by some kind of psychic attack. Now, for Charles Xavier, he tells us that this is not the first time he felt this attack happen to him, which means something or someone out there is always around trying to attack Charles Xavier and most likely other psychics around the world. And so for Charles, his goal is to figure out what in the world is always trying to attack his mind. But getting back over to Excalibur, we do see them traveling around the world to realize that they're no longer in their reality, that now they're in Earth 597 reality. Now on this Earth, mutants are most definitely hated by really all the people who are not mutants, because while you have Excalibur walking around, they're being hit with all these different kinds of slurs like "go home," "you suck," "we hate mutants," "you should die," and the list goes on and on and on. But when they get inside the Prime Minister's office, they kind of find out the Prime Minister is actually being surrounded by a group of Nazi soldiers. And so it really does show in this reality that the Nazis are in charge of the entire world. And so for our heroes to kind of realize they got to play it safe here until they're able to figure out what exactly is going down when it comes to them being in this alternate reality. But now we jump over to Hitler. Like I said earlier, Hitler is still alive in this reality. Now, this is Hitler turning to his closest ally to help out to defend himself against Charles Xavier. And that would be the Red Skull. And the Red Skull is coming here saying, listen, I can help you take down Charles Xavier, but I thought you believed that he would be the next leader of the world. And you have Hitler say, you know what? I thought the same thing as well. But then I realized I was completely wrong. That Charles Xavier is mad with power. And with that power, he is going to ruin my dreams. And so now we have to work together to stop him before he's able to ruin everything. Matter of fact, when we do jump back over to Charles Xavier, this is a man realizing that he is close to reaching his goal. And so he says, you know what? I gotta make sure that my goal stays in reach, that nothing can stand in my way. And so he calls up the Lighting Squad. And let's not forget, the Lighting Squad is this reality version of Excalibur. But now we jump back over to Excalibur. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they're being confronted by a council of people who are trying to decide if our heroes should be kept alive or should they be killed off right here immediately. Now, let's not forget, for our heroes, they're better known as Excalibur, but in this reality, well, they're called the Lighting Squad. And so you have our heroes just trying their best to play along, except in the middle of this trial, Kitty Pryde is called by Charles Xavier, because let's not forget that Charles said he needs to call up the Lighting Squad, but he feels like our heroes is his Lighting Squad members, and so he's calling Kitty Pryde. Now for Kitty, she knows that this is Charles Xavier, but it's not her Charles Xavier, and so right now she's trying her best to fight back against his call, but the way she's acting, the council freaks out and says, you know what, we are losing order. And so you have chaos in this courtroom happening with all these different guards beginning to attack Excalibur. Now Rachel is able to calm everyone down, but you didn't have the council say, you know what, you guys need to go see Moira McTaggart right now, because honestly, I feel like you should be killed off. Now for our heroes, they're kind of wondering if they're going to meet their Moira McTaggart or this reality's version of Moira McTaggart. And really, they have met this reality's version of Moira McTaggart right before they had left on their adventure in the Cross Time Caper story arc. And so when they arrive to Muir Island, they find what looks like this reality's version of Moira McTaggart. Now for Kitty Pryde, she hates this reality's version of Moira. And the reason why, because again, her counterpart, Kitty Pryde here in this reality, was a slave to this reality's version of Moira. And so for our Kitty Pryde, she's all like, I don't like you. You made my counterpart a slave and you did horrible things to her. And so you have our Kitty punch this Moira McTaggart right in the face. But after doing that, they're then confronted by this reality's version of the X-Men. Now in this reality, they're not called the X-Men, they're actually called the Reichmen. Either way, they do fight against our heroes, the Excalibur team. Now, this fight does last for a few pages, but honestly, you have our heroes being able to get ahead in the battle to be able to actually take down each and every single one member of the Reichmen. But after doing that, you didn't have Moira McTaggart say, enough is enough. I need you guys to listen to me right now, because this is really important to understand what exactly is going on. But then we kind of find out that this Moira McTaggart is actually our Moira McTaggart from the main Marvel universe, but at the same time, also the one from this reality as well. Let me explain. So our Moira McTaggart is saying that right now, the two Earths, the main Marvel universe and Earth 597, are combining into one reality. But here's the thing. When the two counterparts are being combined as well, the one that has stronger willpower will take over the other one. And so when it comes to our heroes, they had the stronger willpower. And so they were able to take over the spots of the Lightning team in this reality. And the same thing for Moira McTaggart. She had a stronger willpower. She was able to replace this reality's version of Moira McTaggart. But she says, listen, I need you guys to work with me here when it comes to trying to fix things to save our reality and theirs as well. But now we have to jump back over to Charles Xavier. Now, when we do, this is where we learn that Charles Xavier has been running different kinds of experiments at his facility. Now, we actually do learn this because Red Skull comes by his facility, and Charles at first believes the Red Skull wants to know what's happening in this actual place. Now, this is where we see a lot of weird things happening. Like, for example, we have Charles Xavier showing us that Cyclops is being constantly tortured because he wants to learn more about his optic beam. That Beast had died off a while back, but he's right now trying to learn more about his actual body. Angel died a long time ago, but they're very confused on how he was able to grow wings. Iceman is being controlled by Charles Xavier to do more experiments on Polaris, and Jean Grey is locked up because, well, Charles wanted her, but she said no. And because this man cannot take no for an answer, he basically locked her away. Like, it's really messed up in these few pages right here. But you have the Red Skull say, listen, Charles, I'm not here to see all your different kinds of experiments. I came to tell you that Hitler wants to have a conversation with you. Now, when it comes to the meeting between Hitler and also Charles Xavier, is Hitler saying that Charles is not trying to work in the way of helping out the organization that Hitler had built, that Charles trying to build his own organization. But this is also Charles saying, no, I'm just tired of following a weak leader, somebody who's very delusional. And so you have Charles walk away. Now, when he does walk away like that, is Hitler saying, you know what? I realize that I have now completely lost Charles. And so you have Hitler saying, hey, Red Skull, are we ready for your experiment? And Red Skull says, yes, I'm down if you're down, boss. Now, getting back over to Excalibur, they do arrive at Charles Xavier's facility. Now, when they do arrive, you have our heroes right now dressed as Lightning Team, this reality's version of Excalibur. Now, most of the team can go inside and meet with Charles Xavier, but Rachel cannot. And the reason why, because as we learn back in the Cross-Time Caper story arc, there's only one Rachel Summers across the entire multiverse. Only one. And the reason why, because in her reality, she came from the Days of Future Past reality, which was originally the future to the main Marvel universe, but now it is a separate timeline. But either way, she's the only Rachel Summers across the entire multiverse. And so in this reality, there is no Rachel. She can't go on her team right now, because if she does, then Charles will know that this is not his Lightning team. And so once our heroes do go inside, they do try their best to pretend to be the Lightning team who works for Charles Xavier. But here's the problem though. When they get inside there and he begins to question them, they try their best to give him answers in a way to make sure he believes that they are his actual team. But then he begins to read their minds. Now, once he does read their minds, he realizes that this is not my team at all, that you are someone else pretending to be my team. And so you have Charles Xavier attack their minds with his mind to, of course, knock them out. But now we have to jump over to Red Skull. Now, when we do learn the Red Skull project is to allow Hitler to turn back into a younger age, his prime age, so that he is able to continue on to be the leader of the world. But Charles Xavier cannot, because Hitler will still be around. Now, we also kind of find out that the Red Skull's way of using the project is very similar to what Charles Xavier does. Now, remember, earlier we saw Charles Xavier killing off different people as a way to collect their psychic essence. Red Skull does the same thing as well for his project, which then allows Hitler to turn back into a younger age, his prime age. Now, for the Red Skull, he does have a part 2 for his plan. You see, for the Red Skull, he also wants to use his device as a way to connect his mind to the minds of Excalibur as a way to kill off Charles Xavier. Now, let's not forget, like I said earlier, when it comes to the Red Skull, he also has to kill off a bunch of people to collect their psychic essence as a way to power up his machine. And that's the problem though, because every single person he killed off, Rachel Summers feels their pain as well. And so with her power and the power of the Phoenix combined together, she begins to use the minds of Excalibur to help her bring down the power of Charles Xavier's mind. And so his mind gets shut down. But while doing that, she also sends a huge feedback over to the Red Skull's mind. And so he's also taken off the board as well. Now, let's not forget that Hitler is still in the the Red Skull's device. And originally, the goal was to make him younger, to bring him back down to his prime days. But the problem is, no one is able to turn the device off. And so he continues to get younger and younger. I mean, like, he's now a young man, to a teenager, to a kid, to a baby, and then nothing. He is completely gone. And so our heroes were technically able to save this world by just, well, Rachel Summers. Now, Rachel Summers does give us a better idea of what exactly went down. It's still weird, but hey, this is what happened. So she tells us that Charles Xavier killed off a lot of people. With that, with all those victims, they cried out for help, and their cries were technically answered by the Phoenix Force. Now, here's the thing. All his victims, they all came together as one big consciousness that then merged with the Phoenix Force. When that merge happened, the two worlds also merged together as one. Now, she also tells us that Charles Xavier is technically not dead. Because with the power of the Phoenix Force and also the powers of all the victims that he had killed that was combined into one consciousness, they attacked the mind of Charles Xavier, adding his mind with all his victims' minds as well. And it turned Charles Xavier into this new form where he no longer has this physical body. He's now this very strong being in the astral plane. Now, here's the thing. We're left to believe he's still out there and possibly might come back down the road, but he doesn't, because this was the only book he ever appeared in. And honestly, he seems like a very powerful character, but we can technically say that Charles Xavier's project actually worked, where he was able to create the perfect mutant, the perfect X-Man, himself becoming that powerful being. Either way, once they were able to get rid of Charles Xavier and all his victims out of the power of the Phoenix Force, the two worlds were then separated once again. And so our heroes were able to go back into their reality and return to their lives. And the book really ends on that note right there. And so with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.